Shy intern's amazing sign language greeting revealed a surprising connection with a millionaire. Maya hurried through the bustling halls of the prestigious corporate law firm, feeling more like a shadow than a participant. Her heart raced as she navigated through throngs of confident lawyers who floated seamlessly between conversations, each word draped in privilege. She often felt like a ghost, lingering behind the confident facade of her assertive colleagues. The weight of her mother's sacrifices echoed in her mind. She had to prove herself. But it was hard to stand out when she felt like she faded into the gray walls. The moment came when she nearly collided with the polished door to the conference room. As she inhaled, preparing to step inside and drown in jargon, a flicker of movement in the lobby caught her eye. A man sat regally against the stark backdrop. His calm demeanor contrasted with the chaos around him. It was like staring at a tapestry amid a sea of monotone suits. His striking gaze met hers, and a spark ignited deep within her. David was deaf, yet his presence radiated warmth that made the air around him feel charged. Maya's heart thudded. What was she doing? She hesitated, grappling with self-doubt that loomed large in her mind. Was she really going to approach him? But the moment hung heavy, begging for action. She squeezed her fists, bracing herself. With trembling fingers, she signed a simple greeting, her voice withheld but her intention clear. The smile that burst from David was transformative, shattering the icy layers of her insecurities. In that instant, she felt seen for the first time amid the whirlwind of the firm. Their conversations blossomed as they shared laughter and stories, her words flowing in sign language while she marveled at his ability to impact lives through philanthropy. Yet beneath the surface, tension brewed as she learned just how tightly their fates were intertwined. The firm's legal maneuvers aimed at dismantling David's family business struck her like a blow. A grappling sense of injustice encapsulated her mind. Did her loyalty lie with the corporate machine that thrived on greed, or with the man fighting to protect what remained of his family's legacy? Her pulse quickened, each heartbeat a reminder of the dilemmas swirling within her. Would she betray what she felt for David if she chose to remain silent? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The impending legal showdown loomed closer, and she could almost hear the ticking clock echoing in her mind. Each decision weighed heavier as she discovered a shocking secret, a family grievance woven into a tapestry of history tying her and David together. The revelation was a twist she hadn't seen coming, plunging her deeper into an intricate dance of loyalty and morality. The day of the trial arrived, a heavy hush cloaking the firm as they prepared for battle. Maya stood at a precipice, every option unraveling with unfathomable consequences. As she contemplated confronting her boss, a cold grip of anxiety coiled around her throat. Would she speak up and risk her position, or shrink back once more? Torn between the life she was expected to lead and the voice she yearned to find, Maya felt overwhelmed by the stakes. The choice loomed large, each second stretching unbearably long. In that moment of maximum anguish, as she squared her shoulders to face the unforgiving tide of corporate might, she realized that everything she'd ever wanted was just beyond reach. How would she forge her destiny? Would she become the advocate she hoped, or would fear silence her forever? The weight of her choice electrified the air, each thought colliding with uncertainty. Only one thing was certain. Her voice was on the precipice of being unleashed, a mere whisper away from revolutionizing everything she believed in. As her conviction wrestled with trepidation, she took a breath and faced the ramifications of her heart. The conference room was a sea of polished suits and manicured confidence, but beneath the surface, tension rippled through the air like a live wire. Maya stood outside, her heartbeat pounding in her ears as she watched the glimmers of authority shine off the partners. They were poised, ready to pounce on David's family legacy, but she couldn't help feeling that somewhere in this corporate machine there was a lifeline waiting to be seized. Taking a deep breath, she clenched her shaking hands and steeled her resolve. David's warm smile entered her thoughts, urging her to act. She had spent too long adhering to the shadows of expectation, and now it was time to forge her path, to step away from the sidelines and shoulder the burden of truth. As she pushed the door open, her confrontation with reality erupted into the room. Maya locked eyes with her boss, Howard, whose beard seemed to stroke the very air in disdain toward David. Faced with his cold authority, an avalanche of doubt trickled down her spine. "Maya, we expect you to compile the evidence for today," he barked. The usual flurry of tasks felt like stones tossed at her feet. Each one was a reminder of her hierarchy, a chant of subservience drowning her newfound clarity. She swallowed hard, feeling the embers of her courage flicker. "What if I am able to support David's case?" The words tumbled out before she could filter them through the lens of self-doubt. Silence swallowed the room, the weight of her question hanging uncomfortably. Heads turned, eyebrows raised. Howard's narrowed eyes pinned her in place. "That is not your role. You belong to this firm, your loyalty lies with us." Each word was punctured with disbelief, and Maya's heart sank. This was the very moment she had dreaded, the confrontation that could either drown her in shame or liberate her from invisibility. And what if this firm is wrong? She shot back, surprise rushing into her cheeks. What if we're harming someone who doesn't deserve it? Even as she spoke, unfamiliar alarm bells blared in her mind. Had she just crossed a line? A ripple of murmurs unfurled among the senior associates. She had breached silent decorum, ignited an internal debate none had expected. Her heart raced as Howard's rage mirrored the frustration she had long harbored. It was a reaction she couldn't dismiss as just alarm. Perhaps it was the glimpse of change that ignited within her, yearning to break free from years of imposed silence. "Watch your tone, Maya." His warning slithered through the tension like a snake coiling tighter. Yet, in that moment, every accusation he hurled felt lighter than the burden she had carried thus far. Something in her steadiness, it may have been her new connection with David or an awakening of her inner voice, began to weave a tapestry of defiance against her fears. Maya struck while the iron was hot, realizing that for every footstep back, there was a choice to step forward. "I won't work against David. Not when it's unjust." The room quieted, a taut silence wrapping around her like a protective cloak. However, the weight of her declaration bore down on her shoulders. She had committed to a path where the consequences loomed menacingly close. Recognition flickered behind Howard's eyes as if he were realizing she was no longer the timid intern who flitted through the hallways. Maya felt the surge of possibility rise within her, a newfound competence threatening to unravel the very fabric of her past insecurities. In this charged moment, she had cracked open the door to her potential, but she knew the road ahead was fraught with challenges. As she shifted uncomfortably, questions about David and her own professional future collided within her. Could she continue this fight and remain at the firm, or was it time to carve her own destiny? With renewed determination, Maya pushed through the palpable tension, her voice, once a whisper, now a burgeoning roar in the silence. But in that heartbeat of empowerment, doubt clawed at the edges of her mind. What if speaking out cost her everything she had worked toward? The stakes had never been higher, and the path to self-discovery suddenly felt both exhilarating and terrifying. However, on the horizon of that daunting unknown was the promise of authenticity and perhaps something even stronger. Just as the prospect of change and confrontation seemed within her grasp, a flurry of activity from the conference room's doorway abruptly diverted her focus. Turning back, she caught sight of David entering the fray, purpose burning in his eyes, ready to confront the storm. In that moment, Maya realized she wasn't fighting this battle alone anymore. But as their gazes met, a sudden wave of uncertainty swept through her. Could her voice truly hold power in a world designed to suppress it? The moment of truth hovered, tantalizingly close yet shrouded in ambiguity. Maya's heart thudded in her chest as she exchanged a fleeting gaze with David. His presence seemed to breathe life into the electric air of the conference room, amplifying the uncertainty swirling within her. She had taken a stand, yet here he was, the weight of familial expectations evident in every line of his furrowed brow. Suddenly, the moment stretched, the gravity of their shared resolve pulling her closer to a cliff from which there was no easy retreat. Maya's mind raced, questioning her decisions. Maybe she had overstepped, dared to voice an opinion that wasn't fit for her station. But those thoughts were quickly squashed by the knowledge that silence had never served her well. "Do you need me to back you up in this?" David's voice sliced through the tension, his focus unwavering. It held strength, an unyielding energy fueling the possibility of something larger than either of them had anticipated. She drew a breath, steeling her resolve. "I won't stand back while they try to undermine you." Curiosity flickered in David's eyes, a mix of admiration and surprise. It buoyed her courage, filling her with a newfound sense of responsibility and agency. Howard, however, remained unmoved. "This conversation has gone far enough," he snapped, a quick huff escaping him as he crossed his arms defensively. "Maya, you're jeopardizing your career over a dispute that is not yours." His words hung in the air, thick with the threat of consequences. The thought of losing her job, a job she had worked tirelessly to earn, made her stomach lurch. But deep down, she knew there was power in standing resolute, a strength she had never accessed before. "Loyalty is one thing, Howard," Maya asserted, her voice steady, "but acknowledging justice is something entirely different. I can't play a role in perpetuating a lie anymore." With each word, she felt the walls of her fears crumble slightly. The oppressive weight of subservience began to transform into a sense of purpose, and the thought excited her. However, she also felt the churning in her stomach, the threat of losing not just her job but the last shreds of predictability in her life. Howard's face darkened, emotions roiling beneath the surface. "You're a fool if you think anyone cares about your moral dilemmas. This isn't a charity, it's business." "You're right. It's business," David interjected, his tone unexpectedly firm. "And businesses need to evolve. Clinging to outdated ethics won't win you respect in the long run." The partners shifted, torn between loyalty and self-preservation, and that was the moment Maya realized she wasn't alone in this battle after all. Taking a steadying breath, she formulated a plan, aware that this tide of dissent began with an honest commitment. In one sweeping motion, she envisioned providing all the evidence she could gather on David's behalf. She felt the momentum shifting, a voice echoing in her core, amplifying every ounce of latent courage that had been shoved aside for far too long. As the murmurs grew louder, the partners started to discuss among themselves, debating framing and strategy. Suddenly, an idea crystallized in her mind, igniting a surge of adrenaline. What if they didn't just defend David but also revolted against the firm's predominant disregard for equity? "I will work to gather the necessary information, not just for David but to ensure that this firm knows that integrity must be upheld," she declared, surprising even herself with the clarity of her vision. It was a risk that held the potential for everything she feared but also everything she desired. Just as Maya felt the exhilaration of her potential bloom, she noticed a whisper of discontent ripple through the other associates. Was it admiration? Was it fear? Most importantly, did they fear that she'd actually succeed? The details spun and flickered in her mind, possibilities of alliances and confrontations intertwining. As the room buzzed with rising voices, she felt the lines drawn not just around her, but within her. Had this decision unfolded merely as a response to her fears, or had she finally begun to own her destiny? The stakes had risen, and the clear path she thought she had emerged upon now felt like a tangled forest. Maya's heart raced, every nerve sparking with uncertainty. Could she turn this moment into a solution for others searching for their voice in campaigns inexplicably woven into the fabric of the firm? As she resolved to embrace her newfound initiative, her mind raced to orchestrate a strategy that wouldn't just confront her fears but catalyzed a deeper transformation. But would her colleagues respect her boldness, or could it backfire, throwing her deeper into the shadows she wished to escape? As the conference descended into chaotic opinions clashing, Maya caught the glint of Howard's simmering resentment. It was just the beginning of a fight with far-reaching consequences, one that tested her commitment to her emerging self as she stood equally poised for victory or failure. But far beyond the conference room's immediate disputes, a more daunting entity loomed, one threatening to derail her plans. Would David's struggle become their shared destiny or mark the beginning of her undoing? The thought lingered uncomfortably as uncertainty gnawed at her, setting the stage for their next confrontation amidst a tempest of resolute choices. Maya felt the air around her thicken with tension, the debate swirling among her colleagues echoing her own internal conflict. Each word exchanged stoked the fire of her resolve, igniting her passion for integrity and coercing her belief in justice to the forefront of her mind. Internal dissent rumbled through the associates, the palpable fear of change shimmering beneath layers of loyalty to a failing tradition. Yet, detaching herself from the chaotic dialogue, she focused instead on her personal motivations. As the discussions dragged on, Maya assessed the intentions driving her own bravery. Would she fundamentally challenge the injustices entwined deep within the firm, or was this merely a personal vendetta against the shadow of Howard's authority? The latter felt dangerously like self-sabotage, a realization that unsettled her deeper than any opposing opinion voiced in the room. It became clear she was no longer merely defending David, she was stepping into her own light, resisting the shadows that had confined her for far too long. "I can't be a pawn in this game anymore," she muttered under her breath, conviction dawning as she pieced together the fragments of her strategic vision. The cacophony shifted. Voices faded as her mind focused on her own potential, bubbling forth with new ideas. An innovative campaign. Grounded in equity but harnessed with the ardent energy of change. She sought to galvanize the other associates with her alertness toward disparities, fostering a culture within the firm that actively valued merit over legacy. "What if we," she began, interrupting the murmurs encasing David, her opponent turned ally. "What if we position ourselves not just against the allegations, but redefine our firm's core values around ethics and respect? Solidarity isn't solely about support, it's about advocating for a system that empowers everyone." The room quieted, curiosity tugging at the faces around her. Stray glances of encouragement ignited pockets of belief in her vision. Could it be? Did they see her not just as an intern but as a strategist, a pioneer aiming to define their futures? For the first time, she saw herself reflected in their eyes, an individual ready to contribute meaningfully. Her mind raced, tapping into the skills she harbored beneath the surface, the innate drive to lead. This moment could be the genesis of her transformation from a hesitant voice to one of influence. Feeling the conversation shift towards her, she seized the moment. "We can turn this crisis into our springboard for a new identity, create a culture of accountability, one that doesn't shy away from hard truths but embraces growth." David, sensing her momentum, joined in. Leadership is no longer about protecting what was, it's about forging what can be. Their voices combined harmoniously, their shared ambition coalescing in the room, each word elevating Maya's confidence like the petals of a flower unfurling towards the sun. But just as her burgeoning vision began to take hold, Maya felt the chill of resistance slicing through the warmth of camaraderie. Howard's eyes burned with disdain, simmering with unyielding authority. "You think idealism will save you? Your naivete will get you nowhere in this day and age." His condescension echoed, attempting to shake her burgeoning sense of self. Maya's resolve sharpened, readily facing him head-on. She felt the power surge within her, cementing her commitment not just to defend David, but to redefine the firm's core as a sanctuary of integrity. "Idealism can only thrive when grounded in realism, Howard," she retorted, the tension somehow invigorating. The conversation began to spiral again, stakes heightening. She sensed the energy shift, could see the rippling uncertainty among her peers. Would they follow her lead? Maya managed a glimpse of purpose resonating with the others as their eyes locked on hers, bright with potential. Yet, apprehension hovered, whispering doubts threatening to sway the course. What if this new path fractured their alliances instead of fostering them? Would the unity she envisioned transform into fragile disarray? As Maya drew in a breath, weighing the tension of her resolve against the risks, she recognized that crossing this threshold would irrevocably change everything. She braced herself for the long, arduous battle ahead, one that held the possibility of not just silencing Howard, but dismantling an oppressive legacy and forming a new path for herself and her colleagues. The stakes were high, yet in her heart, she could feel the pulse of opportunity vibrating through the fear. It was now or never. Would she harness this moment with the allies she'd unwittingly gathered, or would the impending confrontation extinguish her newfound voice before it could take root? As the debate raged on, that looming question lingered, stirring within her a bewildering mix of fear and fierce determination. Maya's thoughts spun like a carousel, caught between her burgeoning ambition and the heavy shadow of Howard's skepticism. Every glance around the room revealed a fragile network of faces, their expressions flickering between intrigue and doubt. The moment felt pivotal, teetering on the edge of transformation not only for her but for the entire firm. Why not challenge the norm? She pressed, her voice steadying itself against an internal tide of doubt. What are we risking by standing for what's right? She scanned the room, noting those silently rallying behind her, their curiosity morphing into a glimmer of determination. With each passing second, a knot of solidarity tightened around the associates like a protective shield. Howard's presence loomed as an obstacle, a wall of traditionalism that stood defiantly against the winds of change. Beneath his arrogance, Maya sensed an entrenched fear of losing not just control but identity, as though his very human essence was stitched into the fabric of the firm's outdated values. This realization electrified Maya. Could she expose that vulnerability? Her mind raced with tactical possibilities, each idea a potential chisel that could crack the granite facade of his authority. But the question loomed large: would her strategy shatter the fragile alliances in the room? One slip-up on her part could tilt the delicate balance, changing trust into treachery. Howard, your experience is invaluable. But sometimes, rigidity stifles progress, Maya asserted, her heart pounding. The challenge resonated like a clarion call, an invitation to redefine leadership, inviting everyone in the room to reconsider their own strengths. Let us embrace dynamism instead. Can we leverage our talents to create something profound? The crinkle of papers and coughs broke the silence, signifying a shift in the atmosphere. Whispers began to pierce the tension, a ripple of hope filtering through the doubts. There it was, the collective breath of uncertainty morphing into the wind of possibility. Maya could feel their collective ambition building like a crescendo, each word she spoke feeding the surge. Suddenly, the power of the room swelled as David chimed in. What Maya is saying isn't just about this moment, it's about our future. Do we want to stay anchored to the past or sail into new horizons? His voice, once a branched ally, now pulsed with the cadence of leadership, echoing Maya's resolve. Yet, as questions bloomed in the space around them, Howard's defiance thickened. This idealistic chatter is sweet, but the reality of our market doesn't allow for fantasies. The world isn't as forgiving as you plan to be, he countered, a calculated sneer tracing his features. Maya held her ground. She gathered her strength, the belief she had in herself crystallizing into sharp clarity. With respect, Howard, the old ways have failed us. This is our chance to rewrite the narrative, to be the firm that leads by example, not just by the numbers. A palpable shift transpired, the murmurs accelerating, each syllable building on Maya's resolve. It was exhilarating yet terrifying, a transition from inertia to motion. The others felt it too, their apprehension melted into raw enthusiasm. If they could forge a path, perhaps it could lead to not only restitution for David but also an expansion of their collective identity. Maya's heart raced at the prospect. Perhaps this was her moment of truth. Yet, deep-rooted fears still clawed at her mind. What if she failed to truly unify them? What if her vision only paved her own path to isolation? As she tempered her emotions, Howard's gaze transformed from disdain to something colder, an icy irritation, a warning that this fight was far from over. You may spark a fire, Maya, but it's in your best interest to remember who unfairly holds the matches around here, he hissed. It was then that an unsettling thought crept in. What were Howard's next steps? That realization gripped her with a new sense of urgency. The fight had only begun, and she had grabbed the interest of her colleagues, but could they withstand Howard's machinations? Would her boldness simply lead her to become his next target? As tension hung heavily in the room, she steeled herself for the battles ahead. Would this fragile alliance hold, or would the forces that sought to preserve the status quo prove too powerful? She could no longer afford to be just a participant, she had to become a leader in her own right. The new chapter of her professional life was beginning, and with it came the looming specter of confrontation, both with Howard and within herself. Would she dare to explore the limits of her capabilities, or would doubt undermine her newfound resolve before she could seize this extraordinary opportunity? Maya stepped away from the confrontation, the echo of uncertainty shadowing her every thought. She could hear the muted discussions buzzing around her, the soft emergence of new alliances with each word that spiraled through the air. Yet, a blaring alarm sounded in her mind. Howard's chilling warning stiffened her resolve, but it also ignited doubts she hadn't expected. The path she had chosen might very well lead to her own professional demise. As she made her way out of the meeting room, a surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins. She needed to strategize, to reconceive her approach to the burgeoning support she sensed around her. Her colleagues looked at her now with reconsidered eyes. They might follow her lead, but would they truly stand firm against Howard? She had lit a flame, but it felt precarious, as if it could extinguish at the slightest breath. Maya found an empty corner of the office, a small alcove nestled between the rows of cubicles, a place where she could think and breathe. She had to transform this moment into momentum. As she leaned against the cool, angular surface of the wall, her heart thrummed with possibilities. Instinctively, her mind traveled to each associate who had shown any glimmer of support. David, she whispered to herself. He had been a steadfast presence, a counterbalance to Howard's hardship. She needed to reach out to him, not only to capitalize on their budding alliance, but also to tap into his insights. After a few moments of deep breathing, her resolve crystallized. She pulled out her phone and texted David, proposing a quick meeting. She could sense a flicker of shared ambition between them. It was a spark worth nurturing, a tactical necessity to further solidify her claims in the firm. When he arrived, she wasted no time. "David, we need to keep this energy alive. Your words today were pivotal." They resonated with everyone. The intensity in her voice was palpable, an urgency that she hoped would grip him. "They're just words, Maya," he replied, his tone laced with skepticism. "Howard has a way of throwing people off balance." "True, but you felt it, didn't you?" The tide began to shift. "If we can keep the momentum going, challenge the traditionalists one step at a time, Maya, it's not that simple." He ran a hand through his hair, worry creasing his brow. "What if he retaliates? He has connections, influence." "Exactly. Let us leverage that against him. What if we started by brainstorming ways to address some of the issues that resonate with our peers? Things we know will catch his attention and highlight his outdated methods. We can remain strategic while pushing back against him." A flicker of interest darted across David's features. It was a crack in the wall of doubt he had built. "What do you propose?" Maya's excitement surged. "The firm's reputation is on a steady decline, and the feedback we've received from our clients indicates a longing for innovation, something Howard refuses to acknowledge. If we can present a consolidated vision where some of our ideas align with client needs, we will have a solid case to make." While her words hung in the air like bait, she felt the weight of each implication. Could they navigate the murky waters of corporate resistance? Would they have the courage to act against Howard's retaliation? David nodded slowly, and the green light ignited in his eyes. "Okay, let us start brainstorming then. We need to get the team involved." As they dove into the depths of ideas, Maya's heart swelled with the promise of transformation. This venture could be her catalyst, not just for the firm but for her own evolution. She wasn't merely advocating for a cause anymore, she was embodying the leader within her, ready to rise to the occasion. The moment when all that she dared to be was within her grasp, but amidst her budding confidence, the specter of Howard still loomed, waiting in the wings. Would her strategies bear fruit, or would they provoke a much fiercer backlash than she could anticipate? Maya took a deep breath, ready to confront the path ahead, aware that her biggest challenge still awaited. The battle lines were being drawn, but the question lingered: would she have the strength to not only face Howard but to redefine her own legacy at the firm? Maya's pulse quickened as she and David sat shoulder to shoulder at the whiteboard, marker in hand. The stark contrast of the board's emptiness to the swarm of ideas now bursting in her mind was electrifying. She sketched out a framework of the innovation proposal, her hand moving with urgency. Each stroke was not just ink on a surface, but a declaration this was her arena now. As she wrote, she examined her thoughts in fragments. What did they want? What did Howard fear? They needed to turn their observations into actionable plans. The light in David's eyes reflected the awakening possibilities in her own heart. Together, they were forming a coalition not just against Howard, but for the evolution of the firm. Let us consider what our client specifically mentioned, Maya said, pausing to place her hands on the table. They want efficiency, fresh perspectives, and a willingness to adapt. If we can synthesize their desires into concrete steps for change, we can effectively corner Howard. David tapped his pencil against his chin, deep in thought. We should focus on a specific project that aligns with their priorities and scales effectively. Something Howard can't dismiss without it looking like he's out of touch. Maya nodded vigorously, feeling a surge of validation in their emerging partnership. David had the same fire she felt. They embarked on a brainstorming session that evolved into a strategic plan, yet in the back of her mind, nagging doubts clawed for attention. How long could this alliance last without direct confrontation? The clock ticked mercilessly as minutes slipped into the hour. David was pulling at threads she hadn't considered. What if we frame it as a team challenge? Present this to the whole office, letting everyone contribute their ideas. It not only opens the floor but showcases how outmoded Howard's approach is. Exactly, Maya exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. A competition could galvanize the staff, make them feel involved. And Howard want to ignore a unified front of innovation coming from all levels. They spent hours refining their pitch, interspersing ideas with practical solutions drawn from real client feedback. Maya reveled in this stretch of creative risk-taking. Her initial fears about confronting Howard began to transform into a compelling desire to expose the archaic structures holding the firm back. She was awakening, shedding the timid intern her colleagues associated her with. Got the connection? David grinned, an unexpected bond lingering in the air as they collaborated. But it was not merely their cooperation that felt revolutionary, it was Maya herself, unshackling aspirations she had buried under doubt, yet, that connection came with a cost. The realization that they were challenging a powerful incumbent made her stomach churn. Howard's reputation for retaliative methods was not a mere legend, it was a palpable threat. What if their proposal was met with aggression? The thought of being ostracized sent tremors through her nerve endings. As they wrapped up their brainstorming, Maya's mind oscillated between exhilaration at the work they had accomplished and dread at the challenges looming beyond the horizon. She debated whether to discuss her anxieties with David. Would revealing her vulnerability hamper their momentum or foster collective strength? We should present this to the team tomorrow, David suggested, breaking her trance. The enthusiasm in his voice reignited her spirit, spinning the worries into a quiet resolve. Agreed. Confronting their fears together might empower them. Maya's new resolve hardened. Tomorrow, she would articulate her insights, her vision for change, and face whatever backlash was to come. But an even more pressing question hovered: would she still feel the same courage when it was time to unveil their strategy in front of the entire team, especially with Howard watching? With shaky hands, she added one last phrase to the board: united voices. Change begins here. As she stepped back, the weight of her words sank in. The next chapter was beginning. Not just for her career, but for the firm. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. Tomorrow would prove to be a defining moment, but for now, the shadows of uncertainty still lingered, allies and adversaries blurred. As Maya peered into her future, one final thought echoed through her mind: did she truly have what it takes to lead this charge against Howard and fundamentally reshape her own narrative? The next morning arrived wrapped in the stark silence of anticipation, a heavy cloak that settled on Maya's shoulders as she walked into the office. The buzz of activity around her was a counterpoint to the storm inside her head. Today was the day, and every step toward the conference room felt like wading into uncharted waters. Maya's heart raced as she greeted her colleagues, but her mind remained tethered to distinct thoughts, a mental checklist echoing in her ears. She had practiced the pitch countless times. Clarity was key, but so was passion. The room buzzed with chatter, unaware of the seismic shift she hoped to initiate. Would they see the potential as she did? Or would Howard's shadows eclipse her light? On entering the conference room, she caught a glimpse of David. He met her gaze and nodded, a silent assurance in the charged atmosphere. His presence was a balm, reminding her that they were in this together. As she stood before the whiteboard, her heart thudded in rhythm with her determined breath. Each mark she had inscribed yesterday still felt alive, beckoning her to reclaim the narrative. "Thank you all for gathering," Maya began, her voice unwavering despite the anxiety tangled in her chest. "We've been listening closely to our clients, and I believe we have a compelling opportunity to innovate. Instead of clinging to outdated methods, let us embrace a fresh approach." She gestured to the framework they had crafted together, each point meticulous yet infused with urgency. Key findings flowed from her lips, highlighting the collective desires voiced by clients: efficiency, fresh perspectives, adaptability. The words bounced off the walls, echoing her well-researched ideas, but it was her anticipation of Howard's gaze that pinned her to the moment. "Howard, no one wants to ignore the history or contributions this firm has made," Maya stated, glancing at him deliberately, gauging his reaction. "But we cannot afford to stagnate. Creating a team challenge could not only revitalize our engagement but demonstrate the evolution we need to face current demands head-on." Howard shifted slightly, his irritation flickering across his features like the shadows chasing the morning light. Maya discerned the tightening of his jaw, the slight narrowing of his eyes. Doubt twisted at her stomach, but then she recalled the commitment to the vision, a commitment that ran deeper than her fear. "Change begins with us, and together we can lead this firm forward," she concluded, her voice carrying strength that startled even her. There it was, a leap of faith into unknown depths. Yet, as the applause and murmurs began to swell, Howard's response struck like a thunderclap. "I appreciate the enthusiasm, Maya, but we have protocols in place for a reason. Innovation cannot come at the expense of proven strategies. We cannot gamble with our well-established relations." His dismissal stung, a sharp reminder of the hierarchy looming above her. Maya felt David's tension beside her. She noticed other colleagues' hesitant expressions. They were witnesses to the confrontation, and suddenly, it felt like all eyes were on her. Did Howard's words bruise her ideas? Her initial exhilaration now mingled with a chilling reality. Raising her chin slightly, Maya could feel the conflation of vulnerability and defiance swelling within her. "Then let us evolve those strategies, Howard. Let us channel what is outdated into our present. Perhaps, instead of dismissing this challenge, you could view it as a chance to refine our legacy." The room went silent, and the energy shifted, the tension palpable. She had challenged him directly, and the conviction she felt in that moment was akin to shedding the layers of doubt she had been wearing. But her heart raced, the stakes were higher than before. Despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her, an unexpected strength coursed through her veins. As the discussions resumed, the team engagement morphing into questioning, Maya sensed a turning point. She could either retreat within her shell or step firmly into her role as a change agent. Just as her resolve appeared to cement, an unanticipated question emerged from the team, one that could either anchor or sink her ambitions. "Maya, how do you propose we rally everyone behind this initiative without creating further divisions?" Her breath caught. It was a direct hit. Could she illustrate not only the need for change but how to embrace it collectively? This time, confidence surged in her mind. This was not just about her and David anymore, it was about effecting real change. "So, let us start not just with a competition," she replied, voice steadier than before. "Let us collaborate on iterations of our ideas, pooling from every corner of the firm. We owe it to ourselves, and our clients, to build this vision together, removing the fear of backlash." And just like that, she felt the flicker of potential ignite around her. The shadows receded as her light pushed through, illuminating paths she had yet to take. But as she glanced at Howard, something darker lurked in his eyes. The battle lines were drawn, a strategy without the assurance of safety. Tomorrow could reveal everything or fail spectacularly. Did she have the mettle to see this through? With each word, she charted a course into even murkier waters. The true confrontation was looming on the horizon, and she was right at the edge, ready or not for what may come. Would she stand resolute, or would the tide sweep away her fervent desire for change? The day following the intense confrontation felt oddly muted, as if the air itself had thickened with unspoken tension. Maya arrived at the office early, the stillness around her amplifying her thoughts. Her presentation resonated in her mind, a constant reminder of both her ambitions and her challenges. The faint hum of the coffee machine broke the silence, and she used the action as a distraction, desperately trying to push away the anxiety that clung to her. Sipping from her cup, she caught sight of David approaching. His expression was one of cautious optimism, a flicker of encouragement amidst the uncertainty they had all experienced. "You did really well yesterday," he said, his tone earnest. Challenging Howard like that, it was brave. Brave or foolish, she muttered, the weight of the previous day's significance settling heavily on her shoulders. What if I just made everything worse? David leaned against the wall, thoughtfully considering her words. Change is never easy, especially in established places like this. You've opened up a dialogue. Now it's time to navigate through it. His unwavering belief ignited something within her, a guarded resolve began to overwrite the whispers of self-doubt. What if she transformed her vulnerability into a rallying cry? She had to decide whether to cower under the scrutiny or get creative in her approach to engage her colleagues. Throughout the morning, fragments of ideas dashed through her mind. She scribbled notes, focusing on how to portray innovation not as a threat to the established order but as an essential evolution. She gathered quotes from industry leaders that champion change and adaptability, determined to weave them into her strategy. Each phrase felt like armor against potential backlash. After a lengthy meeting filled with discussions about daily operations, Howard's voice emerged, commanding and unwavering. Innovation sounds exhilarating, but we must prioritize stability. We've built our reputation on consistency. The words landed like bricks, each one a reminder that he was still very much the gatekeeper to the vision she wanted to manifest, yet, the room began to stir. Nervous conversations flared up amongst her colleagues, many casting sideways glances at Maya. She felt their silent expectations. This was her chance to not only respond but to craft a narrative of collaboration. The fire in her belly reignited. "Can I share something?" she interrupted, her voice piercing through Howard's authoritative tone. It felt like a risk, a leap into a void where she had no assurance of a landing. "Go ahead," Howard replied, a slight arch in his eyebrow, as if to dismiss her again. The challenge, however, simply fueled her resolve further. Change is challenging and sometimes uncomfortable, but history reveals that stagnation can be equally debilitating. Imagine if we turned our consistent reputation into a foundation for innovation. By embracing that duality, respecting our core and adapting to new ideas, we position ourselves as industry leaders. The murmurs of support rippled through the room. There was a distinct shift, a collective inclination toward her words. David nodded encouragingly, and Maya fueled the momentum. "Let us create small, pilot projects where we experiment with your ideas and gauge the results. We can test the waters without diving in headfirst." Howard's expression hardened. "I'm not keen on trials that disrupt our workflow. But disruptive can mean transformative, Howard. Are we not risk managers? Letting go of the fear of failure is a necessary step toward achieving success." This audacious rebuttal threw her heart into her throat. She was stepping firmly into the arena, ready to face whatever backlash would follow. Howard's glare tightened, yet the deliberation of her peers grew increasingly supportive. A tentative energy buzzed in the air, change was on the horizon, and she had ignited the conversation. As discussions trickled into the afternoon, Maya felt the satisfaction of planting seeds for progress, yet the specter of Howard's final decision loomed in her mind. Every doubting glance from him, every naysayer's skepticism, made the stakes higher. A cheery knock on her office door startled her from her thoughts. It was Sandra, a senior partner, with her usual warmth mixed with intrigue. "I heard whispers about your ideas. I'd love to chat about them further after hours. Things may be changing, and those who are forward-thinking tend to get noticed." Maya felt a thrill. This could be the opening she needed to further her initiative. As those words settled within her, she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, almost like standing at the edge of a diving board, ready to plunge into the water below. That evening, Maya pondered over her agenda for the discussion ahead, already strategizing how to leverage Sandra's influence. But even amidst the burgeoning opportunity, a pall of uncertainty loomed large. Would she be up for the challenge of cultivating change not just in the minds of her peers, but in a culture resistant to it? As Matt, her closest confidant, joined her during a brief break, he sensed her internal conflict. "You've got a shot here, Maya. Just remember, change doesn't happen in isolation. You'll need allies to navigate this, and it's crucial to have backup plans." She nodded, realizing the potency behind his words. Yet, the reality of strategizing at this level felt like climbing a mountain without knowing the paths ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows across her office, she was left pondering not only how to articulate her vision, but how to build the necessary alliances that could lead her through the storm ahead. Her resolve solidified. She had no room for hesitation now that a sudden message pinged on her phone, a cryptic note from an anonymous source: "Meet me at the cafe across the street at 6. We need to discuss how much change is being resisted and who's pulling the strings." The stakes just amplified dramatically. Who could it be? And what could they reveal about the lengths Howard might go to maintain control? Alone in her thoughts, the tension seeped back in. What revelations awaited her on this new path? Maya's heart raced as she entered the cafe, its warm light beckoning her into a world of conversations that seemed so foreign just weeks ago. The air hummed with possibility, contrasting sharply with the icy grip of fear that clutched at her gut. She scanned the room, searching for her mystery informant. As she settled at a small table with a view of the entrance, a man walked in, his demeanor exuding quiet confidence. It was Jonathan, a senior partner she had recognized from across the boardroom. His presence carried an uncharacteristic weight, and his solemn nod as he approached sent a ripple of apprehension through Maya. "Thanks for meeting me," Jonathan said, lowering his voice as he seated himself opposite her. "I wanted to talk about what's been brewing with your proposal." Maya felt a rush of anxiety. "I hope it's not all bad," she replied, forcing a smile. Jonathan leaned in, his expression serious. "The change you've initiated is not just welcome, it's necessary. However, you need to be prepared. Howard is not the only obstacle, there are others who are threatened by your potential." Maya's pulse quickened. "You mean there are people who will actively push back?" "Yes," he confirmed, "but I'll help guide you through this. I believe in your vision, and the firm needs visionaries like you. We can leverage the sway of key partners. I am willing to speak on your behalf." His words struck a chord, igniting a fire within her. This was what she had yearned for: validation, support, the assurance that her voice not only mattered but had the power to change the tide. "Thank you, Jonathan," Maya said, her heart swelling with hope. "I'm ready to take this further. We can't just challenge Howard, we need a strategy that cultivates allies, not just opponents." "Absolutely," he replied, a smile creeping across his lips. "We'll create a proposal that addresses both the need for change and reassures risk-averse partners. I'll help you present the idea of incremental innovation, small shifts that align with the firm's existing strengths." Encouraged, Maya's thoughts crystallized into a cohesive vision. The plan could not merely disrupt, it would evolve and galvanize the firm's identity. She was charting a new path not only for herself but for a compliant culture ready for rejuvenation. The following days felt dynamic and energizing. She and David collaborated closely, intertwining their innovative ideas with Jonathan's guidance to craft a comprehensive approach. Maya's courage swelled as she delivered her pitch to the broader team, fielding questions and assuaging doubts as she showcased the potential for growth without sacrificing the firm's core values. With each conversation, she found her confidence solidifying. Her voice rang out clearly, presenting rationale, statistics, and client feedback to advocate for a shift while retaining their established foundations. She was no longer the silent intern, she was a commanding presence, an agenda setter. However, the lingering shadow of Howard's opposition remained, his disdain simmering as he elbowed to discreetly undermine her momentum. Maya noticed the subtle jabs and condescending remarks, but she gracefully navigated them with poise, leaning more on the support of her allies. She felt a tangible shift in the atmosphere as whispers of approval circulated among colleagues. The tide was turning, her peers began to harness a collective ambition, a desire to not just accept change but to crucible it into something remarkable. Finally, the day arrived for the pivotal meeting with Howard. With Jonathan and David by her side, Maya braced herself. The air was thick with anticipation when she entered the conference room, the weight of expectation tangible. Howard's eyes bore down on her, a calculated gaze that held years of authority, but this time, she was ready. With her notes meticulously prepared, Maya laid out their proposal, the culmination of her growth and collaboration. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared, her voice strong. "At this firm, we excel because we evolve. We have the potential to redefine our legacy while respecting the foundations that have brought us success. I invite everyone in this room to contribute to this evolution." As she spoke, she looked directly at Howard, challenging his authority without flinching. The careful consideration she had prepared turned to resonance within the room. Associates began nodding, enthusiasm stirring against their previous reservations. And then, as if caught in a current of unstoppable momentum, one partner after another chimed in to express their support. Maya's heartbeat raced as she witnessed her colleagues rally behind her vision, echoing aspirations she had felt alone in just days before. Howard shifted uncomfortably in his chair, frustration etched across his features, and yet Maya did not waver. By the end of the meeting, as the applause reverberated off the walls, Maya felt something stir deep within her, a sense of belonging, a realization that she had achieved more than just a professional milestone. She had conquered doubt, transformed her insecurities into strengths, and garnered respect among her peers. As Jonathan turned to her with a proud smile and David's eyes sparkled with admiration, she reveled in the sense of belonging she had fought so hard to create. Maya had become an advocate for change, both for herself and her firm. After the meeting, Maya stepped outside into the bright sunlight, feeling like she had finally emerged from the shadows. As a confident woman, she was not just a conqueror of battles, she had sculpted her destiny with the tools she had previously thought she lacked. The weightlessness of fulfillment propelled her. Yes, there were challenges to face ahead with Howard's lingering presence, but she had forged alliances, discovered her voice, and proved her capability. This was only the beginning. Maya took a moment to bask in the sun, her heart full of gratitude for the journey that had transformed her from a tentative intern into a powerful advocate for change. She had accomplished not only personal growth but had also initiated a transformation within her professional world. And in that moment of realization, one thought came down hard, echoing the essence of her newfound belief: her voice mattered, her courage mattered, and she was more than just a participant, she was a leader. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is vital. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Engage with the journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the inspiration. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.